You are the best thing in my life. Sunny days and starry nights that never end. You make me laugh, you make me cry, you make me come alive. I'll come alive again. I'll come alive. I'll come alive again.
I want to introduce you to my next guest. This is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for at least since 2013, probably.
That sounds right.
And we met when she was hired to be a psychic intuitive for several events that we've done through the Oceanside Museum of Art and through the shop that I used to manage, the Oddities and Steampunk Shop. We're going to focus on your astrology, but I don't think you can separate the fact that you are a psychic intuitive and a clairvoyant that plays into your career as an astrologer. But I want to start at the beginning because, well, first of all, I don't know much about astrology. I know I'm a Pisces.
Here's the mug.
Yes, I've got my tea.
Yeah, she doesn't know anything about astrology, but she has all this stuff.
Well, I've always felt very aligned with my sign. Everything that I've ever read about Pisces, I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's definitely me. I never have been able to argue with anything. When did you decide to get into astrology? What fascinated or appealed to you? What took you down that path?
Well, that's an interesting question. In my case, I was one of those oddball kids, kind of like 11 in Stranger Things, wondering what the hell. And I knew at a very early age, because I was having experiences where I was seeing spirit and having these awarenesses and things like that, there's really, adults are not explaining this to you for the most part. Even though I have a Catholic background and people are seeing visions, you're not supposed to see them. That was just some saint. So I decided that I needed to find out. And since I was a weird oddball kid, I started going through old books in the library, and I found one called Your Psychic Powers and How to Develop Them by Hereward Carrington, which was written a long time ago, and other things. And I decided that that was how I was going to figure myself out, by studying metaphysics and spiritualism and astrology. And I happened to have very permissive grandparents, or at least my grandmother. She kind of thought I was probably going through a phase, but she didn't think it was a bad one. So she gave me permission to study astrology by mail when I was in 7th grade with the people from the Rosicrucian Fellowship.
Which is right here in Oceanside. It's local.
Well, I had figured out that their international headquarters was in Oceanside, so I figured it was meant to be. I was in Catholic school at St. Mary's, and I was writing letters to the Rosicrucians. So I was a little bit of an odd kid. I thought I was going to be a university professor teaching avant-garde art, okay? This was something that I actually did go into more of like as a self-help move, because I was like, oh my God, I'm different. I have to figure this out. Why am I like this? What does it mean? And then it was like I opened up this treasure trove, this Pandora's box, and my young mind was going like, oh, past lives, I knew it, and it was just, it was helping me make sense of the world. And then I realized this is what this is about. This is something that real people seem to understand for thousands of years to try to help us understand ourselves and our world. Just like all the great religions and philosophies that are here for us, this knowledge is here for us. And it has been for a long time.
I think it's great because I was raised Catholic as well. And I had some parents that were into some of the new agey stuff. So we had books on crystal healing. We had books on Taoism. We had books on our astrology signs. And I knew I was a Pisces since I was a kid. And my parents were like, my mom's an Aquarius. My dad was a Capricornus, kind of on the cusp. And my sister's an Aries. And so we knew these things about each other. And it was stuff actually discussed in our family. I think it's really sad to find out how many intuitives I know who were not nurtured as children and instead told it's the devil, it's evil, ignore these, you're
what's
crazy.
Wrong with you?
Yeah,
why are you doing this? Are you seeking attention, or they're downplaying, or fear? And honestly, intuition is a gift. It's a human thing. It's our sixth sense.
Yes.
We have this for a reason. And it helps us to survive and also to be in tune with ourselves and other people. So the idea that it's supernatural or unnatural, I think is unfortunate. I think it's
I
actually
think
quite
so too.
natural.
And what I want to understand now, if we stick to the astrology aspect, is how how do the stars influence our personality? How come when I read a Pisces chart, like the Pisces horoscope you put out this week in your newsletter, I was like, oh, that just sounds exactly like the path that I'm right on. And you even commented, it sounds like I could have written it for you.
Yeah, I didn't think
And
about that until you mentioned it. But basic principle is as above, so below. And that there are these bigger rhythms of the universe, as it were. And that if we understand them, just like when the weather, or when the ancients looked up in the sky and they actually saw an eclipse, or they saw a star lining up with another star like we saw the other night with Jupiter and Saturn, and then they realized, my goodness, this is corresponding with things that we see that are happening here. Just like the farmer's almanac, or oh, when we have this kind of moon, it foretells that the crops are going to be better this year, or what have you. It's people through observation, or maybe just because of divine inspiration, or both, we figured it out. And then what we realized is that there's a predictive element of it, and that it not only pertains to things out in the world, or the cycles of nature, or when a calamity or a good fortune might occur, but that we realize that it could also have to do with a person and their own life and their own destiny, and what kind of lessons were going to unfold. And it's one of those things where, I'm not going to go out and proselytize for astrology. If you don't want it, I'm not going to come knocking on your door and tell you the good news about astrology. And if astrology didn't have any validity to it, I don't think it would be that popular, and I don't think it would have endured throughout the ages, throughout all these different cultures. And I have clients from all walks of life, and some of them would probably be mortified if anyone actually knew that they consulted with an astrologer. But quite frankly, powerful people and regular old people and good people and everybody in between have been consulting with astrologers and intuitives and oracles. Oh, I don't know. I think ever since humans were here.
how about scientists?
Oh,
Ooh.
I have lots of scientists that are my clients. There are always people that have been interested in finding the interface between the more empirical or factual, or well, physics says this, and then we actually realize that that's just like the power of intention. But I think for a lot of people, they're so afraid that astrology or something about New Age philosophy is going to mean something that they don't like, or that doesn't line up with them, or it's going to indicate some sort of predestination that they don't agree with, or it nullifies our free will, or something along those lines. And that's not really what it's about.
To me, sometimes it's hard to get the idea that somehow the star that's light years away, the way and the arrangement of those stars, or the phenomenon that is taking place around our planet, is somehow influencing me. And I understand.
Celeste, just think about the moon, because that's a close body.
That one
right?
makes sense because there's a gravitational pull. We have
but
really close relationship.
That's where we go when we have to make a leap and say, oh, it's so interesting when we saw that star line up with the moon, and then this happened, or why were the ancient people able to foretell these things? And so on that level, it's not about gravitational pull, it's about something much larger. Okay. And something that we probably don't have a complete scientific understanding of. And so at one point in human history, astrology and astronomy were basically synonymous with one another. And we did diverge from that.
I don't have a depth of understanding, but I do know I'm a Pisces, which is called my sun sign. And when I say I have a moon sign, it's my Scorpio is my moon sign, and my Gemini is my rising sign. And I understand there are 12 houses.
Break it down for you pretty easily. Okay. When a person is born, what we're looking at is a map of where the stars and planets really, and the stars as well,
Okay.
where they were at that precise time, if we have that information, and the longitude and latitude and the date of when that person was born. And we're not going to worry right now about prenatal astrology or anything. We're just talking about when you came out of the womb.
And
Or
where is also plays
oh,
into that as
absolutely.
well.
We're
Okay.
using, so what we're doing is we're actually looking at a map with the longitude and the latitude from the standpoint of Earth and little baby Celeste. And really, where all of the stars and planets were at that time are the ones that we're looking at. Okay. And then we're trying to arrange them on a piece of paper, right? So we have to divide space up. There aren't 12 houses really. That's a matter of convenience because we're looking at space.
Yeah.
And we're looking at how the planets are interrelating with one another. It's almost like a committee. And those are your committee members. And your chart is telling us sort of, what was going on that day? Where were they all? What different departments did they represent? 12 houses. And how were they communicating with one another? And then enters Celeste, your soul, your being, kind of going like, oh, here I am. And so what we have is a blueprint or a map or, an indication of your life lessons and some of the pros and cons of being you, that person who was born at that time, at that date, that longitude and latitude. But that doesn't mean that the little baby in the bassinet next to you is going to be you, because that's the part that's your unique being. That's your genetics. That's your soul nature. And the decisions that you make with that energy from your chart to play with in this lifetime. So there are not two Celestes unless you're hiding the other one behind that curtain.
Nope, I'm not hiding anybody.
Even twins who have really virtually very similar charts, and I've done plenty of charts for twins, then why aren't they exactly the same? In fact, sometimes even though they're playing with the same astrological energy, we all know the story of the evil twin, right? You really see them. They might have some very uncanny parallels, but they diverge. Why is that? Well, that's because they are a unique person with free will. And then we can get into maybe there's karma, maybe there are other things motivating a person. And then there's also the fate factor. There is a certain degree of that where, universe throws you a curveball and then we see if you're going to hit it or not.
You sometimes say, don't kill the messenger. This is just what the stars are telling me. You see stars, and then you can also do a reading. But what you've also done that's very interesting is you've been able to predict things like elections, and you've been able to.
So here's the thing: you have to. It depends on which article or which post you're reading. But I am a seasoned veteran astrologer, and I'm a predictive astrologer. So when I make predictions, I'm giving you the most likely outcome.
Okay.
Of what I think is going to happen based on a really rigorous analysis. And I actually try to divorce myself from my intuition or my bias. Okay. Because otherwise I would just say what I wanted to have happen and hope it was true, rather than actually say something that is mostly in alignment with what will be, although I do not think the future is set in stone. But people want to know, like, well, what do you really think is going to happen? And so, I am sort of in the business of projecting. And then, of course, there's a certain amount of it where what will be, but I also, it's interesting. So yes, I have predicted world events. I have predicted elections. Ever since Bush Sr., there was only one election I was wrong about, and it was because I backtracked on my own data. And that was about 4 years ago. And I learned my lesson because I've had to predict a lot of presidential elections where it didn't have anything to do with the person I was going to vote for.
So you find a high level of accuracy with the methods that you've used, and you've used this in numerous ways. Have you done this with people?
If I didn't think it was, like I said, it being out of all of those times I've had to go in public and make that prediction, only being wrong once because I backtracked, that's not too bad. Now, does that mean I'm God and I know everything? No. But I feel pretty good about my predictive ability. And some people, again, might think like, oh my God, how do you know that? You're just biased. And, okay, then you can go find another astrologer that you like better. That's okay. But I'm doing it not because I want to say, oh, this is going to be the one thing that happens. I actually have a bit of a kind of an educational purpose, and I like to actually support the positive, no matter what I see that might be coming in. So I'm not just in the business of predicting disasters, but I certainly like the idea of being able to kind of explain what part of human nature might also be playing out in any given situation, because astrology is actually supposed to help us understand things.
I love to read your newsletter because you do that. You kind of put everything in a nutshell as to what's kind of happening astrologically, not just astrologically, but in the planets, or as far as eclipses and moon cycles and all these things, and how that can play into not only the world, but then you go break it down by sign.
Well, you
And
want to make it personal too, because to me, I'm a Capricorn,
okay,
just like your
birthday
pin. I'm a January 10th Capricorn. I'm a double Capricorn.
coming up.
Oh, yay! With a Virgo moon. So I'm an earth sign. So it's like, wow, how did you end up getting into all of this, celestial stuff if you're such an earth sign? And it's like, yeah, well, here's the thing. I like it to be practical. Because the other thing about astrology is it wasn't supposed to just tell you how many angels could stand on the head of a pin. It was actually supposed to help you make better decisions. And so if that's really its purpose, what I would like to do, especially when I do a reading for somebody, I don't want them to end up being mystified. I want them to be able to figure out, like, wow, you know what? I'm in a good opportunity period and I'm really going to take advantage of that. Or I'm in a period where I might be really struggling with something and I'm not going to bang my head against the wall with that.
When you look into the past and you look up history, do you get interested in looking at birth charts for particular players in history? Is that something you tend to do?
Yeah, and of course, I'm always looking at all the contemporary figures as well, because it's fascinating. I mean, my God, I know Donald Trump's chart better than probably any astrologer on earth right now. Not that I particularly wanted to, but because I needed to.
Because he played such a
And
big role in the world,
oh
right?
my God, and just as I also looked at the two candidates from, well, actually all four of them. I didn't have their birth times, but I most certainly had their dates of birth. And I look at the different players. Countries have their own birth charts. And I'm very, very, very invested and familiar with the birth chart of the good old US of A, because I live here. And it's almost like the United States is a person and she has a chart. And I know her chart very well.
Now that's interesting then. So if the country has its own birth chart, what's considered the birthday? Is it the day you get independence, the day that people
Well, see, now
arrived
astrologers
here?
love to debate this.
Okay.
But, there's a chart that most astrologers have agreed upon for the United States. And I think it has a certain time of day that was reported by the founding fathers about after dinner at this particular time. So we decided that it was the 4th of July and it was a certain time and it wasn't a certain place. And we call that the Sibley chart. Now, are there other astrologers that have other charts that they use? Yeah, sure. But most of us use the Sibley chart.
So that can be applied to companies, people starting a business. Okay.
And there's something called electional astrology, and it's not about elections, it's because of when we decide or elect to do something. And astrologers that do that help people decide when to do something. Just sort of like, I want my baby to be born on this day. Really, literally. And so that's a whole another branch of astrology. When people actually say, I want to give my company a really fighting chance, but I mean, and they decide to consult with an astrologer and pick a day.
That's interesting. I would never even think you would kind of want to, I guess in my mind, I would think we'll just leave it up to the universe. If I feel inspired to start this, start it now. And whatever the chart is, it's because just like when we're born, whatever happens, happens. Women, there's something about women's energy and women being more drawn into these astrology and then celestial things. There's definitely a strong feminine presence, and it gives women a place of importance.
Hey, you said it.
Yeah.
And once again, patriarchy did kind of co-opt a lot of all of our main religions, unfortunately, but it wasn't necessarily intended that way. And to the credit of Catholics, they're one of the religions that really maintained their goddess, their moon goddess, Mary. And really, there's sort of a subset of Catholics that really is quite a cult of Mary and really left everybody else out. And, you know, Mary is a moon goddess. She's standing on a moon. Have you ever seen pictures of her standing on a moon?
With the serpents.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Again, I'm very supportive of the divinity of femaleness, and it has been horrifyingly underrepresented in the past couple of thousand years. And we're bringing it back, and we're bringing it back strong and good, but it's always been there. I mean, I love goddesses.
So when somebody seeks out an astrologer like yourself, especially someone for the first time that may be a little bit more apprehensive and wondering about how woo-woo it really is, if someone was to come, what kind of things do people generally come to you with? Like, what kind of questions and what kind of things can you really help with?
I usually don't let anybody tell me anything when they get a reading because, of course, I need to be able to be psychic. And I also want, you know, I've looked at their chart and, you know, I've moved into that intuitive space and I want them to know that I'm being objective. But mostly people have something on their mind. Sometimes they just want to know if they're, you know, on their own path. Sometimes they're having a relationship issue. Sometimes they're having a conniption fit over their business or wondering why something keeps happening to them. You know, not everybody's in crisis when they come to see me, but a lot of times they are. And they're at a crossroads and they're just trying to see if they can get a beat on what's going on. And maybe somebody told them, hey, this Lady Victoria's good and she's not too far out there and she's really practical, or maybe they just stumbled upon me. But I just, you know, there's an old joke in the psychic community of like, what is the main question that people ask? Does he or she love me? Do they love me? Which is an age-old question. You know, there's a lot of relationship stuff that comes down the road, but also people just want to know, you know, they want to know where they are. You know, like I have a feeling, I have an intuition, I think I know what to do, but just looking for some confirmation. But it's usually real practical, basic stuff that people come with, you know?
Yeah, and I like how you reached out to me actually when it came to some of the issues I had come forward and became very public about. And it was more just to get a gauge on whether or not I was in imminent danger. And
That's
that was
right.
something
Because,
that was
you
a
know,
big
you're
question.
somebody I love and care about, and I read that and I went, oh man, I want to see what's going on here, you know? And I felt much better about it afterwards. But, you know, I've certainly been in situations where I've seen people potentially in dire situations. And I'm not a superficial type of person. If I thought someone was in a difficult or dangerous or hardcore situation, and I've seen it many, many times, I would find a way to tell them that I thought would empower them to make good, safe, and intelligent choices.
You gave me peace of mind. And, you know, it was really great to have somebody who has your insights to come with me, tell me that, you know, I wouldn't be super worried that this person is in your imminent domain right here and that you're immediately being, the threats are going to be made
Yeah,
real.
and bad things happen to good people sometimes. So, you know, I was just thinking like, wow, I wasn't going to come in and try to rescue you, but I mean, maybe if you'd called me, I'm going to, you know, just kind of like,
She
okay, I'll
comes
be
in.
right there. But, you know, I really wanted to see if there was something I could do to help. And then you said, oh, wow, you know what? Okay, I want to take a look at that. So, yeah.
You gave me the peace of mind that I needed before the FBI had answers. But when the FBI came to me with some answers, they ended up finding a lot of what the predictions that you had made, because your predictions were immediate. The FBI takes their time and they took a few weeks or months to actually come
You
to some of
had
the
your
answers.
instincts about it as well, though, I think, to your
Yeah.
credit. And although it's really alarming when somebody hits you with some really profound negativity like that, you know, I think you kind of knew too, you know. I think you had, and I know your partner did as well, you know, but you can't help but just kind of go like, wow, when something, I mean, I don't know, you know, not everybody knows your situation, but it was really kind of over the top. And I had also been in situations where I had kind of been assaulted in that manner. So I resonated with that. And
What are we going to see? What are your predictions coming for us this year?
I'll be present with it.
Okay.
This is a completely different energy stamp from what we just went through. We just had one of the most powerful and challenging and potentially difficult wake-up call astrological influences that anyone who's alive right now will ever experience. Welcome 2020, Saturn lines up with Pluto. Those two planets have lined up before, but that was an epic version of it. And the reverberations from those lessons and that difficulty that humans went through, that's going to reverberate for, well into the future.
Now, what I understand is as an astrologer, and all these astrologers have taken their combined knowledge and observations and seen patterns that emerge when certain alignments happen cosmically. So what? So are we saying that the Saturn and Pluto lining up was one of the triggers that caused some of what we saw in 2020 because of?
Well, if you're an astrologer, you know it is.
Okay.
And we predicted it. People were being way doomsday about it too. I was actually one of the more positive ones. And in my commentary on YouTube in 2019, I said, look, it's going to be really a big deal. It's going to be super hard. It's going to be contentious. And we're going to have the world before 2020 and the world after 2020. Well, now we're in a new year. There's a new energy stamp on this year. A lot of it has to do with those two stars that were aligned with one another the other night, Jupiter and Saturn. You probably saw them up there. Mm-hmm. It looked nice.
So what kind of energy are we going into this year with? Should we be apprehensive? So I'm saying cautiously optimistic. But
I think cautiously optimistic is a perfect way to look at that. Okay. And once again, there's a lot of astrologers that say weird, doomy, gloomy things. And I am not that person, although I'm definitely a realist. I don't roll that way. So let's look at this. What we have is, on the one hand, Jupiter being expansion and growth and opportunity, and it's sort of this open energy, Aquarius energy, the whole idea, everybody knows a little bit about Aquarius, equality, understanding, humanistic. I mean, those things are associated with Aquarius. It's also related to science. It's also related to new thought. It's related to technology. Jupiter is sort of the cosmic version of Santa Claus. It's all about all these expanded, beautiful opportunities. But Saturn, the other star, is about reality and needing to work within your limitations and color inside of the line so you can actually take some of these dreams and visions and deal with what you need to deal with and bring it down to reality. So the two of them lined up is not a bad thing. But it's sort of saying like, okay, we have these visions and these dreams about what's possible, but we also have a lot of cleanup to do, and we need to get real, and we need to stay grounded, and we need to take responsibility. That's the Saturn part. So coming into this, it's not just all sort of like, oh, wow, it's all Aquarius and it's all going to be kumbaya. It's like, no, but there's a different energy, and it's much more optimistic if you look at it that way. And I think we're going to be able to look at some of these dreams and aspirations and even new opportunities, and hopefully use Saturn to be really adult about doing some of the things that we need to do and fixing up some of these problems that we find ourselves in. We can't give up our dreams, but we have to find new and practical ways to make sure that they happen. And that's how I interpret the combination of Saturn and Jupiter together in Aquarius.
I definitely see that everything that we've experienced in the last year was just symptoms of underlying problems. And it's just kind of like revealing the underbelly of things we really need to work on and put our attention on, because we've been distracted by things like our cell phones and our day-to-day lives. And we needed the distractions removed in order to really see what's going on. And if we don't acknowledge what's going on, we can't fix the problem. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you go, I don't know why I'm sick, but you didn't even pay attention to the fact that you weren't sleeping right, you weren't eating right, you weren't taking care of yourself. And so now
Right.
we need to figure out how to take care of ourselves. But on an
Excellent.
individual level, I feel like sometimes when we have these lofty dreams and ideals and we have these things we're trying to manifest, but at the same time, it's not that we need to give up our dreams, but maybe we need to surrender a little bit more to the opportunities that can come out of the new world that is kind of emerging before us. And that, as an entertainer, this is kind of where I've my key word for the year I decided was surrender. It's something I hate because I really like to have control over
It's
things.
a good word though. There's a power in it because it frees you.
Yeah.
And although, you know, we might have some still wickedly difficult lessons coming, and you know, again, we didn't just get Jupiter, we got Jupiter and Saturn, the reality check. You know, there's other things going on too. And this is a period. There's another planetary combo I'll mention, not to get too into the jargon, but Saturn is also going to square Uranus this year. And really, in a nutshell, it's forced growth.
Oh,
It's
people
like,
don't like that.
okay, yeah, well, it's like, okay, you're going to grow because you have to. I
That
know.
makes me cringe a little because every time in my own personal life that I've had to grow, it's because of a trauma or a tragedy or something that was very jarring that experience that caused me to adapt and find new facets of who I am to be able to adapt to that new
Right.
experience and to deal with it. So have
But you did
to
it though, didn't you? You
I
did it.
did. And I'm actually enriched for it. And I look back at it and I'm grateful for those experiences because I am grateful for the life that I
Okay.
have now. And so, kind of like even with this show and having this opportunity to be able to talk to people like you and talk to other people that I know and have met through the years and be able to share experiences, this was something I kind of had to do because I had to have my creativity get out there, but I also had to have my
Right.
social aspect of who I am out there. And I also have a lot of opinions and ideas, and I wanted to find the people that were like-minded that I could share those with.
You put a beautiful spin on it, and I want you to tell everybody we need to look back at 2020 and do just what you said. We have to learn from it and actually come out like the phoenix rising from the ashes, and we have to support each other, and we will have to come up with new solutions and push ourselves and be proactive and do things that is out of our comfort zone. I don't think any of us, either individually or collectively, realize how much good actually might come out of this. And it is, I'm a, you know how it is being an empath, right? I have a feeling that you're very sensitive. It's rough when you can feel all the pain.
astrologysandiego.com, and you do all kinds of things for people. You can do just birth charts, you can do intuitive counseling.
I've always done remote readings anyway with telephone and Zoom and Skype for a while anyway, and that's what we got right now. And I'm really affirming that that will change soon too. Yeah, things are looking up, honey. So this was a really great opportunity. Thank you, and you definitely have it going on. I love your ideas.
All right. Well, it was fantastic talking to you. And thank you for being a friend of mine. Thank you for being on my show today, Victoria. And I look forward to many more conversations with you and reading your insights in your monthly newsletter as well.